Right now, a little bit later than usual, it's time for the traditional Arseblog season preview podcast. My guest, as we do every year, is Ken Early from Second Captains. Hi, Ken.
Andrew, how are you?
I'm all right. So I was just saying to you, this is the first time I've been in my studio in the city centre since March, since lockdown, and we are, we have to point out, we're very well socially distanced in here.
Yeah, I completely drenched myself in highly liquidy hand sanitizer. I'm covered in this sort of alcohol, like amniotic fluid, that sort of so I think it's probably pretty virus free.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Well, we'll touch wood on that one.
Virus free, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, how have you been getting on in this weird period of life that we're living in? You guys are still doing all the podcasts, all the stuff, but it's different now.
Yeah, it's, although you get used to it like pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, are you completely used to this now?
I think I was kind of really used to lockdown, and then the sort of facsimile of what normal life is now is a little bit weird. Like, can you do this? No. Or you can only do this if you eat a €9 meal.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Like, I'd hate to be, I don't want to sound like an old guy, but I'd hate to be a young person right now. From the point of view that, like, you know, a social life is kind of more important when you're young, and going out and going to bars and going to clubs and, you know, just meeting people is generally more important when you're younger. I think we can cope because we could just sit home and drink wine.
I think they're probably finding ways to
sure they are, but
I mean, you know, do you get the feeling that there's an enormous reverence among the young people, a terrific attitude of solemnity about the rules? You know, we must obey these rules. You know, don't really, you know, I think a lot of young people look at the age profile and they're like, well, do I really need to worry about this?
Where are they doing it though? Are these like underground, like speakeasy nightclubs for young people? Who knows? No,
not in the same hotel room as the rest of the team. Anyway, not in the same hotel floor as the rest of the team. So
what was it like? What did it feel like to you when football just stopped?
Well, at the time, it was like okay. It sort of, at the time, I remember it was like, this should have. Why isn't this already stopped? You know, it was kind of the last game was that Liverpool Atletico game, right? That was the
one of them, yeah.
And it was like, why are they even playing this now? There was this kind of weird paralysed inaction by the British government. Okay, they were still playing. I mean, that was a UEFA game, obviously. So UEFA still, but you know, I remember PSG played Dortmund in that round, and it was behind closed doors. You know, they all went out. Remember, the fans were all outside the stadium. You know, but at least there was some. You know, in Italy, they've been playing behind closed doors for a couple of weeks. I forget if that had happened in Spain. I think so. I think it was behind closed doors in Spain as well. So I was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you know, that was kind of my main preoccupation at that time. Was there doesn't really seem to yet be a recognition here that this is going to be a big problem. But, you know, certainly in the UK, I remember that was the whole Cheltenham stuff was happening, you know, that sort of around that time as well. And then when it stopped, it was like, well, of course it's stopped. And you're kind of just mesmerized by this massive, like, unfolding planetary train wreck, you know? So I wasn't really thinking about it for a long time. It was kind of like, it suddenly being stripped out of your routine was scarcely noticeable, given that, like, your entire routine had simply been cancelled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and you know, for the first few weeks, did you miss it at all? I mean, I don't know. I mean, at that time I was really following, like, obsessively all the kind of news about it. You know, oh my God, what's going to happen? You know, how's this going to play out? Which has probably changed now. You know, you're kind of like, oh, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a certain,
like, the sort of numbers say that they're announcing on the Irish news now every day. Which, you know, if that had been like in March, it would have been terror. It would have been, oh my God, what, you know. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, 300, 500 cases, you know, who cares? And it's like, you know, it's the same, it's the same number. I don't know, but you know, you get used to You get used to anything.
Did it come back quicker than you thought it might because of the height of it, or when it locked down and all the stories were going around and you know, we were trying to get to grips with what exactly this thing was? It really felt like we might not see football for ages and ages.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they were putting plans in place. The Project Restart thing, it came back in June. There was talk about it from May, that it was basically going to happen back then as well. So it felt to me anyway that it came back more quickly than I thought it was going to.
Well, it was mainly in Germany, you know, it was because of the German football returning. Then it was like once they were doing it, it was like, well, clearly it can be done. You know, they haven't had any disasters there, and once you've got the example, you know, then it's like everyone just sort of piles in afterwards. You know, I mean, I remember at the time it was a bit fraught. Like, there's a lot of kind of questions about whether this was an appropriate thing to do. Like, you know, if you're thinking in terms of like the context of like as it then was, you know, many hundreds of people dying per day, you know, and this general this massive problem that everybody was sort of facing collectively. Then suddenly it's like, oh, by the way, our, you know, football players are going to play football now. So,
yeah,
you know, whether that was appropriate, that was kind of one of the strands of it. And then there was like, is this kind of a crazy thing to do from a safety point of view? You know, are you putting the players at risk? You don't really understand this disease. You don't understand what it is. You don't understand what it does. You think everyone's fine, but you don't know that. You know, you think like these guys in their 20s will get this, or, you know, even if they do get it, it's not going to affect them. But you don't know that. You don't even really know what is the disease. No one has really defined it at that point anyway. So how can you then play with those sorts of risks? And the answer is, well, otherwise we don't get paid. So, you know, let's do it because we all want to get paid and we're all going to take the risk. Yeah. You know, people have been taking risks for money for a long time. Sure. In various different fields. You know, long before there was football pitches in the northeast of England, there was coal mines. It was pretty dangerous. It was unspeakably horrific and dangerous, but they did it because they wanted to get paid and
needed
for the same reason
to get paid, I suppose, as well. I mean, yeah. I mean, how much, you know, the idea that football, as it was sold, or the return of football was going to be a sort of boost to the nation, the spirits of the nation and all that kind of stuff. But clearly the pressures that have been applied to... I wonder how far up the top it starts, because obviously the European Championships are a factor, in UEFA and these governing bodies, but then there's the Premier League, there's the broadcasters, there's the clubs themselves, there's the owners of the clubs, you know, the financial impacts that they're going to experience, which you'll talk about now maybe in a minute. But just in terms of making it happen, you know, was it a sort of a pressure that was... premature maybe, or was it, you know, has it turned out to be kind of the right decision, given that until the players have ended the season and gone off on their holidays, most of them have remained free of COVID?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess so. Like, it turned out that it was technically feasible to do, you know, without it causing, you know, mass outbreaks of disease. And okay, you have to see how long that can, because I imagine at the beginning it's like when you introduce any kind of complex set of rules. In the beginning, everyone observes them very carefully, and then after a while, it's like, oh well, nothing ever goes wrong, so you know, fuck the rules. And then you get things like what happened with the England players who, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this kind of thing, I'm sure, is going to go on the whole time. And like, there will probably be, I mean, we are all, just because we've sort of got used to this situation, which I keep saying, it's, you know, like, there could be like another train wreck, you know, ahead of us. This, like, I mean, there's no guarantee this season is going, like, is this season going to proceed without, like, what happens if like your entire squad is like COVID positive? You know, I mean,
well, look at what happened with the Czech Republic.
They just played. They just got
a whole bunch of other players.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be players, I suppose. I mean, it didn't happen, and there was an incident in Russian football recently, wasn't there? Where like I remember something from last season. I don't think it had anything. I'm not sure it had anything to do with coronavirus. I think it was before then. But like basically, where like the Rostov under 16s or something had to play like a Russian Premier League game and like lost 8-0 to Zenit or something. And it was one of those real, like, Michael Owen, Neville Southall type of situations.
Yeah, well done, lad, he's 13.
Zenit guy, like the goalkeeper was crying and all this kind of stuff. So maybe that could be something that happens this season. I suppose, you'll always find 11 able-bodied players. There is an argument that could make a bit of a nonsense of the competition. Would it be worth an asterisk? Would you have to put an asterisk next to the title winner? If you'd had a Premier League in which, like, a lot of the games were played by under 16 teams. I don't know. I mean, they must have some contingencies in place if that happens. I mean, I'm not quite sure. Having read as much as I can, I'm not quite sure what the cutoff point is. Like, how many players within a squad have to be tested positive before your entire squad, and by extension the coaching staff and the technical staff and the managerial staff and all of those people have to quarantine or self-isolate. I mean, there's this thing that the government have put in place. If you're an elite sports organisation, you get a letter, which is why the players can go away on international duty. They're supposedly in these bubbles. Yeah, but not the journalists. The Irish journalists weren't able to go to Bulgaria.
Shame.
Well, you could go, but the problem was that if you went to Bulgaria, then you would have to quarantine when you came home for 2 weeks. Right. You couldn't just turn up at the Finland game 3 days later.
Yeah.
It would have been considered a breach of etiquette.
May not be the worst thing considering the way that game went.
Yeah.
What struck you most about what football was like when it came back after the games got back underway? I mean, obviously,
kneeling.
The which?
Kneeling.
The kneeling.
Like the Black Lives Matter logos on the shirts, all of that element to it was, I mean, obviously a completely new, something which had never happened before in the Premier League. Organised political demonstrations for a cause which, by the way, is not exactly a mainstream or popular cause in the UK. Given what's been happening in the UK recently. I mean, most of the media, I guess, are probably against it. You quickly had like those stories about like, oh well, the Black Lives Matter Twitter feed has been saying the following things about what do they mean, get rid of the police, and what's all this all about? All this kind of thought. I mean, that was a big. It's a big change for the league. I mean, you see what's been happening in the United States now, where they're a couple of steps ahead in this process. Most recently, NBA players and baseball players and women's NBA players, I think, all refusing to play games. And in fact, some of the teams involved in the playoffs saying they didn't want to complete. They just wanted to finish the season. Like LeBron James was saying, let's not finish the season. This is bullshit. We have to do something about it. We've been waiting long enough for something to change. It never does. So fuck the season. Let's boycott the rest of it, or let's go on strike, or whatever term they were using. And Barack Obama talked them back into doing it, making the argument that apparently he made the argument. I mean, I haven't heard the type of what Obama had to say to like LeBron or whatever, but like that, you can achieve more by sort of working within the system to change
work with it rather than against it.
Which is obviously kind of you're not surprised that Barack Obama looks at things that way, but so they ended up doing it. But like, I do wonder if actually Obama might be right about that, on the basis that, like, what would the actual response be of the NBA owners, for instance, if players were to get into the habit of going on strike or having games being stopped? Now, there's no question, right, that in the short term, a player can do more for the cause that they're trying to bring attention to by not playing the game than by playing the game and then complaining about it afterwards, saying, by the way, I think, we played the game and now I think it's a disgrace that, the police are still doing this. There's no question that if you say, I'm not playing at all, the game isn't going to happen. And everyone's like, oh, where's the game? What do you mean? What do you mean the game's not on? Why is it not on? There's no question which of those has got more cut through. The question would be, how many times can you do that? You know, how many times can you do that before the owners Kaepernick you? You know, or they say, you know, it's like we wouldn't play a player who is COVID positive, you know, isn't allowed to mix with his teammates and play the games. And we've, you know, certain players seem to be positive for politics, and they also need to be excluded, you know. And we can, and you know, if we've got too many P positive players, then you know there are others. There are plenty of players who will be delighted to play in the NBA as long as the condition of it is you've got to keep your mouth shut and play the games. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. I think that's maybe where that's like the fact is that Kaepernick is a demonstration of this. It's like I mean, if everybody did it, then what would happen? But it's not everybody. There's always going to be people who are like, I'll play. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then like if maybe the best players like LeBron James is sitting it out, like, but like the game is still happening, and you know.
I mean, do you think in some ways that players, Premier League players, because of their support for Black Lives Matter and because they were part of the discussion to make something happen, and they were part of what's the word I'm looking for here? The sort of initiatives to help fund NHS and NHS charities. I mean, is it a case that players are more socially aware and are now more prepared to put that out there? Or was it a question of, well, you know, this is what's going on right now, we need to be seen to do something? And in terms of the Premier League support for those things, you know, they've been very careful to distance themselves from any kind of politics in the past.
Yeah, I mean they have, but they've never had to sort of deal with a situation like this. I mean, they're still kind of claiming that this doesn't have anything to do with politics, and they're like, oh, it's just sort of human rights, as though human rights was a thing that was kind of above politics and didn't have anything to do with it. It's like, you know, they're trying to sort of recategorize it in a way. Yeah, but like, you know, boil it down to sort of the kind of most anodyne statement of like, well, humans are all equal, and you know, everybody is good. You know, I mean, stuff that nobody disagree with or whatever. But like, you know, what Black Lives Matter is like it's not just a case. It's not just like a sort of a Benetton philosophy of like, you know, human equality. It's like it's a critique of the whole system of, you know, well, I guess it's starting in America, but it's like a critique of the entire sort of capitalist system of existence.
Yeah,
you know, it's not like it doesn't just sort of stop like with that, like
not the Lance Armstrong fucking wristband type thing.
Yeah, and I mean that, you know, that's obviously where the Premier League then started getting nervous. Oh my God, like we're, you know, what are we getting involved with? We don't know, you know, we're not sure about this. I mean, we value the police. We don't think they should be abolished, or you know, whatever. You know, we've got great friends in the Israeli settlements. You know. So, whatever. This is like so you see what rugby was doing, like rugby also, like I mean the professional, the Premiership or whatever in England was like, we also wish to you know, because obviously the rugby players didn't want to be like the only athletes who didn't sort of make a, you know, register their protest and their grief, but they didn't do it by sort of endorsing Black Lives Matter. They kind of created their own like AstroTurf anti-racism movement. Like I think Rugby Against Racism. I think Rugby Against Racism, which was like where they could just sort of say we too stand against racism without sort of getting involved in any like more thoroughgoing critique of the, you know, capitalist system under whose iron heel we all ride.
Yeah,
you know, so but so yeah, that was obviously a big change. And then you've got this other weird thing which is happening with the Chinese contract being pulled. You know, what the fuck is kind of, you know, this was like a $600 million contract nearly for 3 years. You know, it's like a decent amount of money. It's like it's worth, I think, like £8 million a year per team.
Yeah,
like
because the foreign rights are equally distributed.
Yeah, which maybe doesn't sound like much, but if you think about it, you know, if you're reading like Swiss Ramble's threads about how, he's able to sort of look at the same information that's publicly available and understand better than anyone else why Liverpool haven't spent a penny, or like what's going on here. Just, well, if you look at it, actually they don't have any money. So, but 8 million a year maybe doesn't sound like a lot of money in a football context, but actually it's like it's like a 40 million pound signing. It's like the cost of 40 million pound signing over the term of a 5-year contract. It's like, you have to think about impacts like that. Okay, will there be a replacement contract for China? I don't know. Maybe in China they've noticed the way that in Saudi Arabia nobody has to pay for the Premier League. You know what I mean? They just watch this be-out queue. So is there really any need for us to be paying you guys hundreds of millions of dollars? We all saw what you did to Huawei. None of us liked it over here. We don't like some of the way that you still seem to think that you can influence what happens in Hong Kong. I mean, there's all of these like crazy sort of influences coming to bear on this. Like it sort of shows how that the Premier League is like a major part of Britain's sort of relations to the rest of the world. It's like their biggest export. You could argue this. It's their biggest cultural export, certainly, and so it's a sort of a prestige thing. It's like a flagship export. And the Chinese, the Premier League pulled the contract, but they pulled the contract because the company in China was like, "We're not going to pay you." So what are you going to do about that? How long are you going to? How about we just don't pay you for that? So
I mean, we've spoken about it before. I think the idea of the bubble in which the Premier League exists, the financial bubble. That was ever expanding, and everybody has said that there's only one thing that will happen to a bubble eventually. It showed no sign really of slowing down, but now perhaps it might well do. And the financial impact on the Premier League, on the clubs, on the way they might operate. Some of them, you look at what they're doing this summer, and it's hard to understand if they've been impacted at all financially. Well, some of the numbers that are going, Chelsea obviously, Man Newcastle. City to a certain extent, even Aston Villa, bidding this week £28 million for Ollie Watkins from Brentford, and another £20 million bid for Emi Martinez from Arsenal. I mean, it shows you that if there are players out there that clubs want, there's still money kind of splashing around
for certain clubs.
For certain clubs, you wouldn't necessarily put Villa as one of those clubs. And you mentioned Liverpool.
Villa not owned by an extremely rich Egyptian.
I couldn't tell you who owns anyone now.
They were they sold by the Chinese owner to a new Egyptian owner, I think. I think so.
Okay, I believe you.
So one of the lessons of the recent Swiss Ramble threads, or one of the points that he's made a couple of times, in my interpretation anyway, is that there's a difference between having a profit in your accounts and having money in your bank account. You know what I mean? Like, so you could be a highly profitable club but not necessarily have a ton of cash available to spend today on players. You also, if you're like most of the clubs who don't have sort of sugar daddy owner, who are expected to kind of fund themselves or whatever, if you're like most of these clubs, then you currently have no ability to really plan what's going to be happening over the next while. You can't really say with any certainty what your income is going to be. You don't know when you're going to have fans back in games, or that's obviously a huge revenue stream which has been hit. You don't really know what's going to happen with the TV money. I mean, sure, they're like, well, we think it's going to be okay, but like the Chinese just pulled out, and I actually have no idea what's going to happen. And they have
to give some rebates, don't they, in 2 years' time?
So they were able to sort of kick the can forward on that repayment, but like that's obviously coming. The rights renegotiation, I guess, will be a little bit more fraught. I mean, the last one didn't really go that great for them. The domestic rights, I mean, they kind of ended up roughly where they had been. It came down slightly, and it was like the strong growth in overseas markets, such as China, that propelled the overall growth. And now China is just like, actually, you know what? Like, we're not paying you anymore. So nobody can really plan unless you're owned by Roman Abramovich, and you don't need to plan because no matter what happens, at the end of the day, he'll always be able to pay the bills. So that's why Chelsea are like, oh, this is actually a great moment for us to buy. Nobody else is going to be buying. Timo Werner would have joined Liverpool. They would have had to pay more money, I assume, for some of the other players that they've signed. Or there's the possibility of auctions. I mean, Manchester United as well got Donny van de Beek for 35 million pounds or 40 million euros, I guess. That probably would have been more if Real Madrid tried to sign him a couple of times. I think The Athletic had that story, or they agreed twice to sign him. Then they're like, actually, we don't have the money at the moment, but don't worry, Donny, we'll be back for you. And in the end, it was only Man United were in for him. So 40 million. Ajax apparently accepted the bid first time because they're like, well, okay, there's no one else who's going to be in this offer we'll have to do. So that's kind of happening all over the place. If you're a club like Chelsea that has ready cash, you can make the accounts. You've got years to make the accounts look right.
I mean, it's a real opportunity for a club like that, isn't it? That if you've got the spending power right now, that you can go out, and it's not that it's easy for you to make the signings, but if they're much less difficult to do. Yeah.
Everyone's frozen, so you can put together a team. You would have had to compete maybe for these players, but now you can, he can put together the nucleus of a team for the next 5 years now. Like maybe put Chelsea back into the top two. They've for the last couple of seasons been well outside this, but who's to say? Like next season, Liverpool haven't bought anybody. They've for a second year in a row, more or less. I mean, they obviously signed Minamino. They've made a couple of signs. They've got a couple of youth players, but really, it's like it's not too different. You'd have to say from Tottenham's situation when they're. The 2018 when they famously didn't sign anybody, their stadium was kind of nearly finished, and they just didn't have any money to sign anyone who was worth signing, in their opinion. So they didn't, and eventually you just saw that team fall to pieces. It's just neglect. Like the bits of the team wear out, and suddenly it's like, we kind of haven't got any of the replacements coming through. We haven't sort of the damage wasn't evident immediately because they got to the Champions League final, but you could kind of see them beginning to fall apart in the second half of that season, and then obviously it just all collapsed at the beginning of last season. So
there is if you're Frank Lampard and you're sort of painted as this
genius.
Well, that, but also you're given a bit of a pass because you're still so young in the managerial game, relatively speaking, etc., etc. Like I feel like sometimes he gets a bit of a free pass because of his status in England with the English media. He was a very, very good player for England, or one of England's best players for a long time. But if you go out and you spend that amount of money on the caliber of players that they've brought in, it does, or it should anyway, put some pressure on you to produce. Not like next season or the season after, but now.
I would imagine so, yeah. And the one person that Lampard obviously has to worry about is somebody who, unfortunately for Lampard, doesn't read the English media, doesn't pay attention, or has people who tell him if there's anything he needs to know that's been out in the English media, but usually he doesn't need to know. And that is Abramovich, who will sack him if he thinks he's not doing it. He will. He says, he doesn't care about him. He's not like he didn't weep when Lampard, had that shot off the bar against Germany, which crossed the line, and he didn't give a fuck. So, he lent Lampard his yacht one time, maybe more than once. I'm sure he's been pleased with some of his performances over the years, but I don't think he's like a very sentimental person. I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he subscribes to the myth of Lampard's, brilliant sort of generalship. Yeah, which I think you can see quite a lot of if you read the English media. You might, if you only followed football by reading what was in English newspapers, you would be like, oh God, this Lampard guy just fascinates me. You know what I mean? I wonder what he looks like. I wonder what he, I wonder, like he just sounds so amazing. And I just don't think Abramovich is quite, I'm sure he likes Frank Lampard, but he'll sack him as well. He liked, Carlo Ancelotti, I'm sure, and he sacked him, and he liked Josie, he sacked him twice.
Yeah. Where do you see the competition for the title this year? Should Chelsea be contenders?
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, completely. Well, the Chelsea have got an insane like spending splurge. Like it's almost comparable to what they did in 2003. I mean, it's not quite, but like it's not far.
No, that's true actually.
Like this is the biggest one they've had since that sort of period, since the very beginning of the kind of Abramovich period. Like it's a real, it's a really interesting thing that's happened there. Like it's, from a point where it seemed as though he was actually disengaging. To like this, committing again, huge amounts of money. But the thing is, I guess it looks like a good opportunity at the moment. It's not like, I think Abramovich had sort of got a little bit tired of sort of competing with like Qatar. He's like, well, I mean,
yeah,
I'm rich, but like seriously, I'm not going to be competing. We can't sign if they're going to fucking sign Neymar and Mbappe like in one summer. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Or what's the point of it? Like,
whereas now it's kind of like, well, no one seems to be really doing much. Strike while the iron is hot here, and these players are cheap at the moment. You know what I mean? And if I am going to sell this club to I don't know who at this point, like I mean, who's left that you can sell it to? But if the idea is there of eventually sort of flipping the club and moving on, he's possibly selling a club in a maybe everything that's spent now gets added on to the value of the club. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't lose. Well, I mean, you can lose, but they definitely should be contenders, no doubt, because you've got teams who've been ahead of them, but I mean a long way ahead of them. But what have those teams done? I mean, can Liverpool keep doing this? They've been like insanely consistent for
2 years now.
2.5 years really. Can they just keep doing that? I mean, they've also been in this situation where this great rhythm that they had has kind of been totally disrupted by basically a 6 month. They've obviously played a few games in recent weeks, but like it obviously bore no. You could see that their form when they came back, bore no relation to what was happening before. I mean,
they had the title pretty much wrapped up.
So again, so it's like it's a long time since they've played with like the pressure of, we've got to compete now from scratch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you could see how last season the I guess what you call the pain of losing out after having such an incredible season the season before, and to amass the amount of points that they did and not win the title was ridiculous, and obviously very painful and probably a real motivational factor. But defending titles is not easy. A lot of teams, and Arsenal have been one of them down the years, not for long enough, but having won the title, it is really difficult to defend it the next year. And if you don't invest in the squad, or if you can't invest in the squad, then it, like you say, using Tottenham as that example, things might just get a bit stale. There's an argument to be made for consistency, of course, and everybody coming in and knowing each other, but at the same time, freshness is important too.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't had really injury problems in recent seasons. But you look what they're doing now. Like, I mean, Ryan Brewster is obviously one of their. Is this guy going to turn out to be good? There was lots of players in this. He was part of that England World Cup winning team, with like guys like Foden and Hudson-Odoi, I think, was in that team. So kind of high hopes for this guy. They're now talking about, maybe we'll sell him. Maybe we'll sell him with a buyback clause. Does anyone ever buy back the player that is sold with a buyback clause? By the way, I can't remember the last time
rarely.
Unless they're buying. Did Real Madrid maybe do that with Morata? They're doing it because. Yeah, did Real Madrid buy Morata back? Was that not
a weird 2-year loan, or the buyback clause was like at a weird? It was quite small, wasn't it?
I think it was basically Real Madrid didn't want him, but they were perfectly happy to buy him back and then immediately sell him to Chelsea at a massive profit. It was something along those lines. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was actually just a loan. I mean, I can't think of too many cases. I mean, I remember Oriol Romeu going from Barcelona to Chelsea with a buyback clause. It's like, we'll be back for this guy. They were never back for that guy.
Yeah.
But like, why are they doing that? You'd think at this point they would at least be like, okay, well, we haven't really signed anybody. This guy is, has got potential. We could have an injury, and we're gonna need to replace some of these front players eventually. I mean, it's been difficult for anyone at that club because it's like Mane, from Salah playing all the time and never getting injured. But like, it can't go on forever,
No.
And yet they're talking about selling him. So you just have to conclude, okay, their financial problems are big. They don't. They're at the peak of they're at the furthest extent of their financial capability to hold together the squad that they've got. You know, and they don't really look at this Thiago situation. Why is this dragging on? You've got a situation where Wijnaldum, who is one of their most reliable players, has not, supposedly wanted by Barcelona, but nothing. Barcelona haven't sort of bid for him, and Liverpool haven't, thinking about bringing Thiago in to replace him. Thiago, he's like a better player than Wijnaldum, but unlike Wijnaldum, has been injured since 2014. On a number of occasions. It's kind of like, why? You just have to conclude the situation is worse than they're letting on. If they won't just do something decisive. Previously, that's been what they've been doing in recent times. Is like, we signed Fabinho, we signed Van Dijk, we signed Alisson. These they've kind of gone and done it pretty quickly. And now in this situation, they're sort of waiting and poker and brinksmanship and bollocks. Like, the season actually starts on Saturday, and so it just doesn't make much sense.
But I mean, is that not down to the financial impact that COVID has had, and the financial implications for all clubs, that, like, as much as every fan wants their team to go out and be decisive in the transfer market forces in themselves are going to dictate how certain deals get done. And if you're willing to wait, maybe you get a better deal, or maybe a player you want to sell, you're just going to have to compromise and take less on. But you can understand why clubs might be a little more reticent, even if the first 4 games of the season are going to be crazy, because squads for this Saturday, I'd say, if you can compare and contrast right across the Premier League, there's going to be a lot of movement, whether it's loans or sales or whatever it might be. It looks, I think a lot of squads and teams are going to look very different when the window closes, as opposed to right now when the window starts. I mean, this is in comparison to last summer, where everything had to be done basically before the season started. We were actually recording here on deadline day, and just as we were finished recording, Arsenal signed David Luiz. So I mean, there's kind of the difference that, like, if that had been in place now, probably there would have been more done, but because you have this extension of the window, it just feels like it's going to play out. No, I mean, it's hard to know really what's going on. I mean, I'm interested to see what Man City are going to do, because so far I'm not kind of blown away by there was obviously this whole Messi thing that was going on with them. They thought, we're going to sign Messi. He's told us he's coming on a free. This is exciting, and evidently there's been quite a lot of energy put into that at City. It's like welcome Messi billboards.
Yeah, well, I mean, how we're going to redesign the team to get the most out of Messi. And all of that was kind of what Pep's been thinking about. And then suddenly that doesn't happen. That's a bit demoralising. They've signed Nathan Ake and Ferran Torres. Okay. I mean, both are good players. Although Ake is an okay player. He's not exactly he's not an aerially dominant player at all. But that's okay, I suppose, as long as you've got somebody with him who is, and I guess Laporte is that. He's good on the ball. But does he really, do you think, well, that's a sort of transformative signing for the defence? No, not really. I mean, maybe he's a bit less error prone than, someone like Otamendi or maybe Stones, but is he,
maybe. I mean, look,
is he better than Stones? I mean, Stones, he probably is now for City anyway, because every time Stones plays for City, which is probably never going to happen again, or he's got Guardiola looking at him, and he knows that Guardiola is thinking, I hate you. Stones. He knows that it's gone. Like Guardiola doesn't rate him. He knows this. Like no matter what Guardiola says, we all know. We've all seen the team's selection. We all know what the pattern of this has been. And for some reason, he's just consigned Stones to the bin mentally. Ake is not yet in the bin, but I could easily see him going in there. You know what I mean? I don't sort of see him as like, whoa, like when they signed Laporte was like, this guy actually could change things there. He's a different kind of guy from what they've got. Ferran Torres, similar, again, like, really highly rated young player in Spain, but like City didn't lose the Premier League last season because they didn't have enough really good wingers. You know what I mean? Like Sané was injured all season, but they still had Sterling, Mahrez, Bernardo. Like, is he better than any of those? I really doubt it. So, like, he might be a good player for Man City. He could be a great player for them over the next few years. Who knows? But I don't see him as someone who immediately improves their team.
Sure. I mean, if the focus was on Messi, I was just thinking about your defenders in the bin. That's a fucking big bin, isn't it, at Manchester City, with the amount of defenders who've been in there down the years.
It's just Pep, like, he just can't hide it. When you're in the bin, you're in the bin. Everybody knows it. It's like, oh no. He just his standards are just so high.
It's so high, guys. Guys, get in the bin. Get in the bin.
So, like,
but if the focus was on Messi, and that's now not going to happen, it's well within City's financial capabilities to go out and just cherry pluck, at least a couple of really, really good players.
Yeah.
From clubs who financially probably couldn't previously resist a City bid, but now absolutely cannot.
Yeah. But, I don't know who it's going to be. We'll have a better... they must, because if they were serious about signing Messi, and it appears that they were, at least on the basis that he would come as a free transfer. But free transfer, and then you have to give him like £500 million over the following years. So there's clearly money available, but like there's not going to be as much money available, like, because signing Messi was about more than just Messi, as he will really help to improve the team. I'm excited about the possibilities of him sliding those passes through to Sterling. It wasn't really just about that. It was clearly more. There's massive symbolic power to this. We've taken Messi from Barcelona. The City Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's like we are the kings now, and so there's no other player who they can sign to make that same point, really, in the same way,
No.
So I don't. Yeah, I'm sure. But at the moment, though, you're looking at it going, well, there's one team that has strengthened massively, and all of the other teams are sort of treading water at the moment and waiting to see what's going to happen, including City. Like, okay, City have spent a bit, but like, not like they haven't done what Chelsea have done, not yet. So Chelsea are the ones that have taken this huge leap forward, and they are the ones that I'm interested to see. Can they? Because I can't help but notice they still haven't bought a goalkeeper
or defenders.
They've bought Thiago Silva, and it's like, he's 36, like in a couple of days. That's So it's going to be really interesting.
Well, let's talk about Arsenal a bit then. What have you made of Mikel Arteta since he's come into the club and what he's done, and the way I think he's sort of set things back on track to a slightly more even keel based on where the club was when he came in after Unai Emery departed, and things were probably at the lowest ebb for over 20 years. Your sort of broad thoughts on Arteta and the job that he did between then and the end of the season?
Well, he's managed to clear out a lot of his little corporate helpers pretty fast, right? He's managed to purge a lot of the boardroom crap. A great gush, a great evacuating gush sweeping through the Arsenal boardroom and sweeping away Raul Sanllehi and various other figures. I mean, like most of the scouts, like you can all go. We don't really see what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Raul, you know, amazing work he did for the club. An amicable parting.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's important to stress that everybody loves everybody, and there was nothing but just the COVID. That's all it was.
But at the end of it, Mikel Arteta is there, maybe a little bit more unencumbered to shape the club according to his will. I mean, I like Arteta much more than Emery. You know, with Emery, like he's a massive improvement on Emery, clearly, and you know, even just in terms of presentation and communication, you know, I mean, you can listen to Arteta.
Yeah,
like you couldn't listen to Emery. I don't mean to be mean to him, but it's just you literally couldn't listen to the man talk. It was too annoying. And you know, I mean, it was even if what he was saying was brilliant, which I don't think it really was.
No.
It just after a while, you know, with everything that was going on at the club, there was a couple of things that happened as well. Stuff with Xhaka, stuff with Ozil. It was just like this is a complete mess. Like obviously he had to go, so it's ages since that happened. Lundberg for a while, and then Arteta. And what did Arteta do? I mean, when he came in, there wasn't much of a change, I don't think, in the first. I mean, they beat Manchester United in the league.
Yeah.
They managed not to get knocked out of the cup. It was kind of in the return. But I mean, it's kind of weird, like because the first game back was against City, wasn't it? And they got destroyed by City again. It was David Luiz getting sent off like an idiot, and then they lost to Brighton, and that was the Guendouzi game, his last game when he made it complete. He's
back in training today. You'll be glad to hear he's with the group again. Some fences have been mended, or you know, there's a situation where Guendouzi realises nobody's bidding for him, and Arsenal realise nobody's bidding for Guendouzi, so let's just make the best of it, kind of thing.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't see why not. Like, I mean, that was the problem, was that he was behaving like a dickhead. I mean, he was doing the Craig Bellamy on it, but without Bellamy's delivery. So much of that sort of stuff is about the delivery, really. You know, when Bellamy was telling opponents in the Scottish League that you know, they could come and do his garden if they wanted, that sometimes they would even laugh just at the sheer obnoxious brio of the man.
Yeah,
Guendouzi just didn't manage to really. You know, it was Mopé, I think. I don't know. He was just boasting about how much money he was making or something. It wasn't even that much. You know,
it can't be. You know,
it was like I earn, you know, 40,000. It's like don't be stomping around in the pitch boasting around about your $2 million a year salary. Like, you're nobody. You're nobody on this pitch. Well, maybe not compared to a lot of the Brighton players, but like, yeah. I mean, it just seems like that was the kind of thing. Like, is it? What I mean is that this is a problem of his behaviour and sort of temperament, which can be surely fixed. Like, you know, he can learn not to behave in this way, rather than like a kind of some fundamental shortcoming as a football player. Because I actually think he's pretty good. Like, I mean, I've always quite liked him as a player. You know, I don't know, maybe Arteta just doesn't really fancy him. Obviously, he's going to get a chance to play because, you know, look at who have Arsenal actually signed? Gabriel,
Willian,
who's a good player.
They brought in William Saliba, who's the young French defender who they bought last summer and then loaned back to Saint-Etienne.
But no midfield.
And Danny Ceballos has come back. But basically, the only addition to the Arsenal midfield from the same group of players that finished 8th last season is Mohamed El Neni coming back from Besiktas, where he was on loan. So I don't think he's really the difference maker, you know. So it is. I mean, I think midfield is clearly the area that Arsenal need to invest in between now and the end of the window. Because up front, there's talent, and there's Pepe, there's Lacazette. even if his future is a bit uncertain. Aubameyang, Martinelli, Saka.
No one is going to buy Aubameyang.
No, well, he signed. My understanding is he signed a new contract. So
he was too expensive for, at this point. It would be a different situation any other year, I guess.
Maybe so. I think without the pandemic.
But where is Lacazette going to go?
I don't know. I don't know who's going to buy Lacazette, to be honest. Yeah. Not for a price that Arsenal might consider more valuable than the money they get and the need to replace him.
And he has to be paid more than he's getting paid at the moment, or at least he's going to be paid something like it.
Yeah, I wonder, is that an adjustment that players are going to have to come to terms with? Is that, each move...
Have the Arsenal players not already come to that adjustment with Arsenal, with one notable exception? Well, he says there are more exceptions, obviously. Didn't Ozil say?
Yeah, apparently there were 3 players who didn't take...
Do we know who the other 2 are? No. Just Ozil. He was the only one who got exposed.
Yes.
Harsh enough.
Well, it is. I mean, if you're going to, expose one, or if you're going to leak the information about one, leak it about all of them.
I'm surprised nobody else decided to leak that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's no way of getting rid of Ozil. It's not reaching the point where they would just pay him off. I mean, I don't really understand, though, because Arteta was playing him before the lockdown, right? Mm-hmm. And then just afterwards, it was just... So it was entirely to do with the pay thing. It was, the only thing that had happened was him refusing to go with the rest of the team. And, as the top earning player in the team, that was kind of a big deal, I suppose. Arteta has gone out and said, listen, lads, we need you to do this for the club. And the highest paid player in the team had said no. That was the reason why he didn't play again, right?
Well, he was on the bench for the first couple of games after that, so he was included. So I don't know. That's, as ever, there are all kinds of angles on this. If you look at it from that point of view, it could make some sense. I feel like, based on some of the things that Arteta said, that he wouldn't be dictated to by that kind of thing. Like, as he said, a player's wages are, that's between them and the club. And
why did he get involved then? Why did Arteta get involved? If the wages are between the players and the club, then he got involved in this situation. He asked them, and once he'd asked them, if they were to say no, then it's a black eye for him, and it's like, well, okay, it's a thorny sort of situation, because the idea of leaving someone out of the team for because they didn't agree to accept a pay cut that you're trying to impose on them isn't, it's not great. But I do think that it does appear as though that is what it is like.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's not that he has a problem with Ozil because he used them before. Yeah. It's not because he's looking at Ozil going, this guy, iron needle passing and all that, but realistically his best days were in 2013 and it's 2020 now and we've got to move on. That's not it, because he was using them before. Yeah.
Look, I don't know. There's so many strands to this thing behind the scenes. You can put 2 and 2 together there and easily come up with 4, of course.
Yeah.
But I just feel like Arteta isn't the kind of guy who's going to cut his nose off to spite his face, in that sense that if he felt he could use Ozil to get results in games, and if he highlights a lack of creativity...
But if you think about it, imagine he starts playing the guy who refused to take the cut or whatever, and then everyone who did take it is like, what's going on here? Like, why did I? He gets paid more than me. Why did I have to give up 12.5%? It's like, it is a difficult situation. Like it's
Well, look, I was never really on board with that anyway, from the point of view that this is a football club owned by one of America's richest men, and within literally 3 weeks of the shutdown or the lockdown, they're putting in place things like pay cuts. And we saw last month, they're making staff redundant, and the players were told, if you take pay cuts, staff aren't going to lose their jobs, and now staff are losing their jobs. So, from on high, I think it's not been a particularly well handled situation. Doesn't particularly reflect well. But do you see enough in terms of what Arteta has brought to the team? There are issues. Obviously, you lose to Villa towards the end of the season. You lose to Brighton. There are a lot of draws. But one of the issues that Arsenal have had are results in big games against big teams. And towards the end of the season, they started producing, obviously to beat City in the semi-final. A really hilarious win over Liverpool, which I think highlighted your point earlier on about how, they'd pretty much switched off once they'd won the league. The goals that they gave away that night wouldn't have been given away previously. But, he beat City, beat Chelsea in the final, beat Liverpool again. I know the Community Shield is glorified friendly, but, you could see on the day that both teams wanted to win it and both managers wanted to win it. So, that's an encouraging sign, I think.
Because that hadn't happened for years. I mean, did Emery win any of those games? Did Emery beat anybody? Did he?
Tottenham.
Beat Tottenham. Yeah, but Tottenham is...
Yeah.
It's about, can they beat City? Can they beat Liverpool?
Certainly didn't beat City.
Chelsea. I mean, on Arteta, the Man United game was one of his first games, right? Beating them. Back
it was. I think it was the second game.
January. So he's obviously been able to. I mean, that's huge. It's huge. It means that the question, it's not the question isn't is this manager capable of leading the team and getting big performances in big games. It's can the manager get a team that's going to be able to perform consistently. And I think it's easier to get that second part if you have the first than it is to get the first if you have the second. You know what I mean? There is that. I mean, the question is what can he really do with this squad? It's such a weird squad that Arsenal have at the moment. Is Luis still in the first team? Probably. I mean, Luis was brilliant in a couple of those matches that we were talking about when they beat City, for instance.
Yeah,
he was really good.
Great, but
but you got a situation where he's probably still a first team defender, and that he can make plenty of mistakes. I'm not quite sure who the goalkeeper now is with Arsenal. Is it Leno? Is it Martinez?
We'll find out Saturday. I think it's going to be Leno.
Yeah, Martinelli was looking brilliant, and now he's out for
he's out until New Year.
Yeah, I mean they didn't need that. The Aubameyang and Lacazette still basically playing the same position, but really you should sell Lacazette and get someone else, but can't. Saka is really good, but I don't know what he is really. What kind of player is he? Is he a winger? Is he a central midfielder?
Don't quite know yet.
So okay, but he's definitely a good thing about the team. But again, it's he could take many different forms. The fullbacks are good, but is Bellerin going to leave? It's quite important, I would say, to hang on to him.
I would have said so. I mean, Maitland-Niles is very good as well and has taken a real step forward. But I think if you are really trying to make progress, I mean, if it were me, I'd just flip Cedric.
Yeah,
and just keep Bellerin.
Who's going to sign Cedric?
Well, that's
no one's going to pay money for Cedric. Surely, I mean, Cedric is signed at a free transfer, which surely means his wages are very good now. Mm-hmm. So,
well, thank you for that, Raul. Yeah,
but again, so who is Xhaka still the sort of base midfielder in the team? I just feel as though Xhaka, and I know Xhaka's sort of in that zone where he's like the unfairly maligned Xhaka, but I still think he's just not good enough for a team. If you say what do Arsenal want to achieve, the first thing that they want to do is get back into the Champions League, right? That's they kind of have to do that if they want to take the next step towards being a title contending team. Yeah, and I just don't see a team based around Granit Xhaka's, Granit Xhaka in midfield being ever being capable of doing that in the Premier League as it is now. He's slow, he's stiff, he's kind of he's a red card risk at all times. It's kind of amazing to me that he's still after everything that's happened.
The weird thing is, and I think you're right, it does sort of reflect on the midfield options. And I think you're right to say that he is in some ways unfairly maligned. But it's a weird situation where he is basically the most important midfielder at the club. In terms of what he brings to the team with structure and experience and leadership and all those things, which are valuable. And I think he's done well under Arteta. And I think the sort of redemption that he had, after the situation that he found himself in, because of everything that had gone on before that, the way he reacted is to his huge credit. But ultimately, I think he is a player who is limited. And I don't have any kind of a problem with him, but I think there's a sort of a correlation between, and I know there are many more factors in this, but his arrival and Arsenal's sort of gradual slipping away from the top 4 place. I know there's a lot more to it than that, but he's not the midfielder who sort of kept Arsenal in that hunt or in that sort of fight for top 4, and I like him. I do like him, but I can see how he's a player that needs to be improved.
I just think he doesn't give enough. Like, if you look at, I mean, obviously he's not comparable anyway to somebody like De Bruyne. I mean, he kind of plays more as a base midfielder, like Fabinho or somebody like that would be his equivalent in the Liverpool team. And like, there's not really any comparison. Like, the thing that Xhaka obviously does well is long crossfield passes. That's one of the things he can do. He's got like a good left foot. Like, he can pass the ball over medium and long distances really well. But like, everyone can do that. Fabinho can do that, but like, is way more mobile, is way better at putting pressure on opponents. Can like combine better with opponents, I think, with short passes. Like, Xhaka just doesn't do that. And when he does when he in the defensive side, he's always giving away stupid fouls, gives away penalties. It's just like, I can't believe that how's he got away with it this long? Like, I'm attacking him now, probably unfairly. It's not his fault. Like, he's not good enough, but like, as long as you're still trying to get there with him sort of carrying you there, like, it's going to be a long road. Like, I mean, I don't know, Mikel Arteta. I think Mikel Arteta is a better coach than Arsenal have had for a long time now. But usually, a coach, when they come in to a club the size of Arsenal, they have got a little bit more. Like, it's the circumstances are against him. Like, it seems like a lot of the job until now has been about clearing up a mess, not a mess in the team, but actually at the club, above the level of the manager. And usually a manager is able to, like when Wenger arrived, obviously they were like, okay, we signed Vieira, we signed Petit, you usually get to bring in a few players at that point. The club is like, okay, we're going to go for this. And at this point, he's coming at this weird point where, oh no, we haven't got any money. We do have money, but we don't know if we're going to have money tomorrow, so we can't spend any money today. So, so we get to see a real demonstration of his coaching ability, Guendouzi has felt the lash of discipline, and now he'll get to feel the soothing rain of rehabilitation.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. The one final thing I just wanted to ask you about was because I noticed that Spain kept the 5 subs rule, and the Premier League didn't. Yeah. Given the weird situation that players are in physically because of the lockdown, because of playing so many times, because of a really truncated preseason, now they're coming back into it, they're playing internationals, there's still the League Cup to play this season, there's European competitions, there's international breaks again, the Premier League, all within this condensed calendar. Do you feel like that's a bit of a mistake?
Yes, it is a mistake, and I don't like the 5 subs. Like, I wish I don't like it because it just seems you get to a point, there's too many changes, like an international friendly or something like this, where the game starts to, it's like, what is going on in this game anymore? It's changing. There's half the players in it have changed. So I don't like it, but the fact is we're in this situation with this. This is going to be the most insanely compressed calendar that there's ever been. I mean, all of these stupid internationals are going to be crushed. I mean, I say stupid internationals. This is kind of a stupid thing for me to say, really. These things are happening because the national federations, like the clubs, need to play matches to get their money, which they need to fund all their operations. I mean, it's fine to say, oh yeah, we won't play any of them, and then like all of the FAs around Europe are just going bust, and laying everyone off and blah blah blah. Which obviously is no good. So everyone's trying to get their games done. Euro 2021 at the end of the season or whatever. Champions League fitted in somehow. Just games. Like, it's crazy. The fact that they and then they're competing leagues. If their teams are going to be playing in Europe, the German teams. I think the Bundesliga is the same. Also 5 subs. The Spanish teams will have 5. It just seems stupid to have done that for this season. They should have, in my opinion, said, okay, this season is still going to be a really weird season. We've got obviously all the stuff with the calendar. Who knows what else could go wrong? And with that in mind, let's just keep that rule. I don't know if they can change it. I assume they can, because they did in the season just gone. The season just gone, started out with 3 substitutes, ended up with 5. There is obviously a precedent for it. If they decide at some point, actually that was a mistake, they could probably reverse it, but I don't even know why they've created that condition for themselves.
Yeah, it just strikes me that if there is, I get the argument that it's slightly advantageous for bigger clubs because they can bring on more big players or better players, but it's also a bit of an equalizer for the so-called smaller clubs when they're playing each other to be able to manage their squads better. And if there's any consideration given to player safety and player welfare, I think we're going to see a lot of injuries if players are playing with the kind of frequency that it looks like they will be. You're going to see not just 2-3 week injuries. Look what happened to Mustafi at the end of the season. He played a lot and he ripped his hamstring off the bone going along. So it feels inevitable that there are going to be more players afflicted by this, and I don't really understand why it was voted down either. So
I guess that argument that it was favouring the bigger clubs must have sort of won the day, and I guess I can see how that is the case, or that is also what I think. But I think the benefits that it would have had to everybody in the particular circumstances of this season were worth that trade-off. It's by no means certain that it definitely is. If you looked at the table of which clubs made the most substitutes, everyone can make 5 now. Who did it the most? I think the top 2 in that table were Brighton and Liverpool. So you've got 2 very different clubs, in terms of their quality or profile. Liverpool are obviously the ones people would say are the bigger club or have the better side. Now, there's also the confounding factor that this is from the June and July period when they've already won the league, and Klopp is trying. He wants to play Minamino, or he wants to give Curtis Jones a game. He's kind of, maybe he wouldn't use that many. If it was kind of real competitive football, who knows? But the point was that if you looked at it, it was by no means all just the big clubs who were using. I forget the rest of the order of the table, but it was by no means just big clubs who were using all the substitutes. There was it seemed to me to have more to do with the mentality of the manager at the club. Is this manager the kind of manager who's someone like Klopp, or I guess Graham Potter, thinking about the number of the minutes in his legs, thinking about the risk of injury, the probability of injury is going up with every minute these guys are out there. I've got to address that. Or are they just kind of go on, lads, get out there and
Was there the opportunity maybe to do something whereby if you wanted to make 5 subs, 2 of those subs had to be under 23 players or, academy players, something like that, to put that kind of condition in there so you could still use it, but it also then provides a bit of opportunity to younger players at clubs.
Well, they're usually suckers for that, right? Certainly the national team, so probably the national team England players, that would have been illegal still under. Well, would it have been illegal? Can they do that now?
Oh no, you can do all kinds of things once it's only a little bit illegal or slightly illegal, whatever.
God, illegal in specific and limited ways.
Yeah, very limited. I'm only stealing your watch, but I'm leaving you with your phone.
Yeah, so in a way. For now, it's worked out pretty well for you.
All right. Well, look, thanks a million as always, Ken. Good to see you. Keep up the great work with Second Captains, and we'll catch up with you again at some point during the season.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Great to see you as well.
Thank you very much indeed to Ken. You can find him on Twitter at Ken Earlys, and of course he's part of the Second Captains crew, who you can find at secondcaptains.com and on Twitter at Second Captains, making brilliant sports podcasts as always. Don't forget, this is the first first or the second of 2 podcasts that we have out today, depending on which one you've listened to first. There is another one. You might have listened to them both by now, in which case this message is redundant. But if this is the first one, there is another season preview podcast with Amy Lawrence, Charles Watts from Goal, James, Tim Stillman, Lewis Ambrose, and lots more, previewing the season, asking some of the big questions that need to be asked. We'll get their opinions on those. So do check your Arsecast feed. The new season begins on Saturday. Arsenal versus Fulham, or Fulham versus Arsenal. Let's hope we kick it off with a win with 3 points. But of course, James and I will be here on Monday to discuss whatever happens at Craven Cottage. Fingers crossed it's good stuff, and we will talk to you then. Until then, take it easy. Cheers. Bye-bye.